My name is Joseph Spiro, and we are the Information Technology team. The risks from an IT perspective of flying a UAV are extremely significant. Having these devices buzzing around out there, they're all subject to attack. Not just the data being transmitted, but the devices themselves. In addition to the risk of attack, there's the possibility of loss of data being transmitted or network packets, as well as the ever-elusive software and hardware bugs. My colleague Adam is going to touch further on that.
So we put together a couple solutions of things we think are possible solutions to some of these problems. The first one is GoLeg. GoLeg is a programming language written by some engineers at Google, and they primarily use it to run all their servers because of its stability. When GoLeg was first introduced, there were reports that people converted their software to GoLeg and then had programs that were previously crashing once a week or once a month to software that now never crashed. And there's even been instances of GoLeg programs running uptimes for months at a time. So this is a very stable software that we want to use for UAVs. Part of the reason what makes it so stable is its error handling. So part of the nature of GoLeg requires you to deal with every branch case and every error. So if you're looking and say we're receiving data from our base station and we're getting two things back. We're getting controls about where we want the UAV to go, and we're getting time updates occasionally. Now, if something goes wrong with a time update, it's not really that big of a deal. We'll keep an internal clock, and eventually we'll get the right time. However, in the other case, that's a critical error. If we don't know where we're supposed to be going, that's a huge problem. And GoLeg helps us a lot by making us handle all of these errors and forcing us to consider all the possibilities. JP is going to talk a little bit about the encryption Salsa 20.
All right. So from a security standpoint, we have two big problems with drones. So either someone can compromise our data and find out things that we don't necessarily want them to know that could negatively influence markets or give them an unfair competitive edge, or we have the possibility that someone could forge messages either from us to the drone or from the drone to us, and thereby either give us misleading information or take control of our UAV. So the main thing that we can use to avoid these is encryption, namely Salsa 20, which is an advanced encryption standard developed at the University of Illinois, Chicago. So it's mathematically very provably secure. When I was doing research, I plugged it into Mathematica to see how long and how much power it would take. Time, even if we assume computers will get trillions of times faster, is still measured in multiples of the age of the universe. And in terms of power, if we can build a sphere around the sun and take the total power output of our solar system, we will run out of sun before we break Salsa 20. So it's fairly secure. It's also very easy to plug and go because there are modules available for most major programming languages. For instance, in Go, we can import Salsa 20 and then do that as one function instead of writing all the hard math parts ourselves and having a larger attack surface for people to exploit. And it's also very computationally cheap. So since we're working on a drone, we have a small package with limited processing power. So we don't want something that's going to take a lot of CPU time to run, because then we're taking away from the things that handle things like collision avoidance and imaging. But Salsa 20 can run very efficiently. I'm going to hand it back to Adam to talk about MQTT.
So MQTT is a network protocol. And the reason we decided to use MQTT is basically because it's resistant to packet loss, but not too resistant. And that sounds really weird, because normally you want your protocols to be fairly resistant to packet loss and losing data. Well, in this case, it allows us to do some cool things. So back to our imaginary drone, and we're flying over a farmer's field, and we're taking images of the crops. And we need those images to get back to us no matter what. And so MQTT allows us to designate those packets as high priority. And what that says is it guarantees that we'll get those packets at least once. It also allows us to set other packets to low priority. So we're flying our hypothetical drone, and we're getting visual feedback about where we're going. And say something goes wrong with the software or something, and we drop a frame. And that frame gets sent to the base station 30 seconds later, or gets ready to get sent to the base station. MQTT can make the decision, that was 30 seconds ago, that's a low priority packet. It's not really important. We see what was happening 30 seconds ago when we were flying the drone. And so it allows us to intelligently route traffic around and use it better, and use it in a more resistant way. It's also very flexible, and it's very small. Once again, we get back to drones are very small packages with a very small CPU. And so it allows us to do a lot more with the drone than we otherwise could without writing our own code. And the other thing is it has a great reference implementation. So tech documentation is always difficult to get engineers to write. I should know I'm one of them, and I hate it. So the advantage is that we can go back and look at somebody else's tech documentation and implement their stuff rather than writing our own, which I'm always a fan of. So the other thing we have is the client-server model. And this is important because from a security standpoint, drones are like the worst nightmare ever because they are a flying object that has the potential to hurt people that we don't really have a whole lot of control over. You know, normally with desktops, they're sitting in a building and we know when somebody's trying to access them or they're coming through our network. Drones, they're like flying out through the world and we can't really see them and anybody could conceivably attack them. And so we just decided to go with the client-server model. And what that means is, let's imagine we're back flying our hypothetical drone, only there's a third party now trying to get access to our drone. And basically what this means is we say that our base station is very secure and that it's hopefully locked away somewhere and nobody can access it. But it means the client is untrusted. So say our third party brings down our drone through whatever means. It crashes, you know, or they shoot it down hypothetically. The client is untrusted means that anything on the drone is not compromising. So any data we have is either encrypted in such a way that the third party can't attack it, or all the data is being transmitted back in real time. So this is a really good way to ensure that we're not losing any compromising data.